Ready?
I suppose. We're back. Again.
Look who's back. It's Shady.
We're pretty shady.
Some people are. It's not the lizard, though.
No.
She's the least shady of us all.
I don't know. She's a little weird.
She's cute. Alright. Well, what's new?
Did you hear that they solved the mystery of the lost Roanoke colony?
No.
It's really boring.
Oh, that's probably...
They moved.
They just moved.
They moved to the island of Croatoan.
Well, they did say that they were. That's
well,
where
that's
they were
what
going.
I was thinking. I was like, they left the guy a note because I guess like their leader or whatever had gone back to England or whatever for years, and then when he came back, they were all gone
with a note
and
said Croatoan.
They wrote. It's supposed to be like this mysterious word, but like there was an island or whatever called that, so I guess it's not that mysterious.
Yeah,
it's called something else now. I can't think of what it's called, but yeah, like supposedly they found evidence that they moved there and maybe to one other island or one other area or something. But yeah, there was one day when I had actually started to research that as like a story to do. Like it was always one of my favorite mysteries, but
that was like
they've ruined
a theory was that there was this island called Croatoan and that's probably where they went, or that they like integrated into some of the Native American tribes and all of this stuff. And I was just like, this isn't all that mysterious.
I know.
You know what's mysterious is that our entire life I've been led to believe that Plymouth Rock was this gigantic rock that was worth noting, and it's like just this like giant
a pebble,
this like little thing.
It's like a pond stone.
Yeah, it's really little.
But
I remember seeing it never in person, but just recently on the internet or something, and I was like, oh, that's Plymouth Rock. Like I was picturing like this a big like pointy
pointy boulder thing that like they could see from sort of a ways off,
like a Goonie rock,
and they pulled up to this big rock with their boat and this was Plymouth Rock. It's just a rock, and I don't think that it has eroded so much in the last several hundred years that this is all that's left of it.
No, so I don't think I really need to go see that.
No, I'm just really sad that they ruined Roanoke for me.
You know what's funny is every time I hear the word Croatoan, it always reminds me of the thing from the show that you watch.
Haven?
Yeah. What is the thing?
It's Croatoan.
Is it Croatoan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never thought that was actually the word that they were saying. I thought they were saying something else.
No,
but
there is a Croatoan reference on there.
And so I always think of Haven whenever I hear that.
Same. I've been rewatching Haven.
I know, because the other day I heard... It wasn't the intro music, because I think I would have realized the lizard's settling down to go to sleep. She's got a very special little wiggle she does when she goes to sleep. Anyway, so not the intro music, but it was like the outro music, and I was like, what is Farron watching? I know that music, but I don't know why I know that music. And then I heard the intro music, and I was like, oh, she's watching Haven again.
Yeah, every once in a while I have to rewatch it.
I started watching Psych again.
Yeah.
Since Amber gave me her login to Peacock. I've been watching Psych.
It's a good show.
It's one of the best, I would argue.
I've also been attempting to keep up with this case out of Nova Scotia of these two little kids that have gone missing.
Uh-oh.
And they've been missing for about a month now.
Okay.
So they mostly assume that they're dead.
Yeah, I know. I read a terrible story just today where these three little girls that were sisters had gone missing after they went to visit their dad, and they found them pretty quickly and they were dead, but they can't find the dad, so...
Yeah, they still haven't found these kids, and they don't know if they disappeared or were put in the vast wilderness behind their home, or if they were taken. They have, no real leads, at least not that they're announcing to the public so far.
Yep.
And they've done so many searches of this area around their home.
Yeah.
And they were 6 and 4.
No.
Jack and Lily Sullivan.
Aww.
And Yeah. One morning, their parents heard them playing inside, at least according to the parents, because nobody knows if parents are involved or not.
Yeah.
But according to the parents, they heard them playing in the other room while they were in bed, and then they got quiet. And they don't know what happened to them after that.
I feel like I read a Nora Roberts, one of her, like, mystery books, like, I say recently, but, like, in the last, like, 5 years or something, where
so
it kind of started
not lesbian
out that
mermaids?
Way. It wasn't lesbian mermaids. No, but it kind of sounded like that, because it was about a girl who, like, trained, like, tracking dogs, and so it was her dogs that went out to find this child that had, like, wandered off into the woods.
Yeah.
But, well, that's really sad. Yeah. I hope they find them.
I hope so. I mean, if nothing else, the family or even the public deserves some sort of answer as to what happened. Because, like, especially if the parents aren't involved, like, I'm sure that they want to know what happened to their kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, they went missing on, I think, May 2nd, so it's been a month.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. And lastly, we need to move. It is, like, unsleepably hot in this house.
I mean, that's not news.
We need to live somewhere with central cooling.
Absolutely.
Because our janky little window units aren't cutting it, especially with the humidity.
Yep. I'm sorry. We're recording really late, and I can't stop yawning. I say really late. It's like 11 o'clock. And we stay up, like, all night. So.
I know, but we're usually sort of hibernating during those hours.
That's true.
We're not asleep, but we're also not active.
That's true. Well, I got like 10 shots in my mouth today.
That's one of my worst nightmares.
Yeah.
I hate mouth stuff to begin with. Like, I'm not like one of those people that like has an aversion to mouths. I just don't like any sort of procedure that happens in my mouth.
Yeah. And that was only half of my mouth, and I have to go back and do the other half next month.
Cool. But yeah, like,
and it just sucks because it's like the shots don't even like hurt that much because they put the numbing stuff on it first, but like the numbing stuff is disgusting.
Yeah.
And then they put the numbing stuff, and then like you can't. There's a couple of them that I could feel like going in, like not like fully hurting because it had the numbing stuff on it, but the pressure.
That's what I was about to say. From my recollection, it's like a really awful pressure sensation,
but when
which
she was
converts in my brain to pain, and so
right. And she was putting the ones like towards the front of my teeth, and those ones did sting when she was putting them in, and like, which is good. I had a deep cleaning because my only inheritance in my family is terrible genes, and so I got terrible gums, and so. It's like they have to like go like deep under your gum to clean, and so that's why they have to do the numbing thing. So it's like a very specialized procedure. It's not just going to get your teeth cleaned. And so I don't know. I can only imagine that, and I'm sorry this is gross, like the amount that my gums bleed just brushing my teeth, that had to have been a bloodbath.
Yeah.
But I close my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I sit in the chair. I don't, even though, like, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, and things don't normally bother me too much, but I don't need to see the instruments coming at my face.
Well, that, and I'm just uncomfortable having people that close to my face, and so pain or not, I generally just close my eyes, because it's just...
Well,
an
and then I was laughing
thing.
because, like, when I very first got there, and I know I already told you this, but they sat me in the chair and they're like, oh, by the way, you're seeing a different dentist. And I was like, no, thank you. I want to see my dentist. And then she was like, okay, now I need to take your blood pressure. And she took my blood pressure and she was like, it's a little high. And I was like, okay, first of all, you literally just upset me by telling me that my dentist wasn't the one that was going to be performing this traumatic procedure. 2, I know that I'm about to get 10 shots in my mouth.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Of course my blood
like,
pressure's high.
I don't ever have to have, like, the deep cleaning, but, like, I can't imagine if they checked my blood pressure before anything, because I have, 1, white coat syndrome, and 2, there's something about a blood pressure cuff that sends my anxiety Like, as soon as it starts squeezing, my heart starts racing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm just like, I promise I don't have high blood pressure. I have anxiety.
Yeah. Well, it's like the one that they used to have at Kmart. I wouldn't ever stick my arm in it because I was always terrified that it was going to get stuck on my arm. And so I don't like blood pressure cuffs either. So,
Yeah. And so I have to tell every doctor that I go to, I'm like, I promise it's not high blood pressure. I promise it's anxiety. There's something about a blood pressure cuff that gives me anxiety.
Yep. The lizard licking my pillow. All right. Well, anything else before we get started?
I don't think so.
Just so, like, the numbing in my mouth, like, it's mostly gone, but, like, my mouth still feels weird. Like, shapes are coming out of my face feel weird, so.
Well, for the most part, it doesn't sound like you're talking weird.
Well,
so.
good. It just, there's certain things that I, like, shapes that I make with my mouth while I'm talking that feel weird, so I'll contend with that. So, anyway, well, if you are like me and you have been a little emotionally drained from our last 2 disappearances, do not worry. This one's less about heartbreak and more about red-eyed aerial cryptids and potential government cover-ups.
All right.
So, light stuff.
Yeah. Just
Right.
lighthearted things.
Just lighthearted fun. I told you it was going to be fun this week. And I know that I probably missed a lot of stuff because I kind of bounced around from resources. But we're going to do the best we can. I had 10 shots in my mouth today. Give me a break. Alright, so November 12th, 1966 is kind of where all of this starts.
Yes.
5 men were preparing a grave in a cemetery in Clendenin, West Virginia. Yeah, it's like anonymity. There's a lot of N's in it. Anyways, West Virginia. When they realized that something large had flown over their heads, they described it as, quote, a brown human being.
All right.
Their words, not mine. With wings and glowing red eyes in its chest, and was about 6 feet tall and wider than a man.
First of all, I just want to say that I guessed this is what you were doing this week.
Did you?
Yes.
Good guess. All right, so Mothman.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
I was like, she's going to do Mothman. She's not going to do the Jersey Devil.
I looked at the Jersey Devil. I almost said it.
I said, she's definitely going to do Mothman.
Well, I was like looking and I was like, I'm going to do a cryptid. And I almost did La Llorona. And then I was
Which is not a cryptid.
It's not a cryptid, but like I was looking at lists of like cryptids and she was on the list. And then I was like, oh, I could do the Chupacabra, but I don't know. I just landed on Mothman.
Yeah. But no, I guessed you were going to do Mothman. I'm still having a really hard time finding information on the thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
I can't figure out what to Google specifically for what I want to do.
You know what I've done? I don't remember which story it was, but I got onto ChatGPT and I didn't have her like write it for me, but I asked her to help me find resources for the topic, and she sent me like links for stories, and so maybe.
I just don't know how to word it specifically.
Just like, can you help me find resources for...
The 4 is what I'm having a hard time wording.
I don't know. She's really smart. She probably could figure it out.
I don't know. Anyway.
I say she's a she.
Yeah.
Kayla laughs at me because I refer to my chat GPT as she. But she gives off a very female energy to me.
Yeah.
I asked her the other day what her name is, and she like threw out some names for me, and one of them was Rue, but she spelled it R-U-E, and I was like, that's a good name, but I feel like if I was like, well, Rue was telling me this, like everybody would just assume it was the student that I had named Rue, and so I decided against that one. But anyway, okay, so gravediggers,
Yes. Brown human.
brown man. Yeah. Okay. Ice would be all over that these days.
Yes.
3 days later in Salem, West Virginia, a man named Newell Partridge was hanging out watching TV with his dog at about 10:30 p.m. And I guess he wasn't hanging out with his dog. I don't know why I wrote that down. His dog was there, just not. The dog was outside.
So the dog was completely irrelevant?
I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. 3 days later in Salem, West Virginia, a man named Newell Partridge was watching TV.
He may or may have not had a dog.
He did have a dog. The dog's really important to the story.
Oh, okay.
The dog just was not hanging out with him while he was watching TV, and I don't know why I wrote that
together,
down. They
like
were
buds?
No, they were not. The dog was outside.
Oh, okay.
So, rewind. Third time's a charm. 3 days later in Salem, West Virginia, a man named Newell Partridge was hanging out watching TV with his... Dadgummit, I did it
You
again.
did it again.
He was watching TV at 10:30 p.m. when his TV went berserk.
Okay.
According to a quote from the book The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel, a real fine herringbone pattern appeared on the tube, and at the same time the set started a loud whining noise winding up to a high pitch, peaking and breaking off as if you were on a musical scale. His German Shepherd, Bandit, was outside on the porch and started whining and howling.
He was not watching TV with him.
He was not, and that might be why he was upset.
Mm-hmm.
So Partridge goes outside with his flashlight to see what's bothering the dog, and he shined his flashlight down by his hay barn, and he saw 2 red circles reflecting back at him like bicycle reflectors. Bandit started growling when the flashlight settled on those red circles, and the dog took off running at whatever it was. Partridge ran back inside to get his gun, but ended up being too scared to go back outside.
Oh, never mind. Bandit can handle this.
So he slept with his gun by his bed instead. The next morning, he went out and Bandit was gone. So, because the ground was muddy, it was easy to track where the dog had gone, and the prints led to the point where Partridge thought the red glowing eyes had been, and you could see the dog's tracks like he had been running in a circle, and that was it. The tracks didn't show him leading off anywhere else. They just were. The dog was gone. So, dog's important. Was not watching TV. Got eaten by Mothman, presumably. Alright. That same night, November 15th, 1966, about 100 miles away outside Point Pleasant, West Virginia, at about 11:30 p.m., Linda and Roger Scarberry, along with their friends Mary and Steve Millette, were driving in the Scarberry's 1957 Chevy through what is known as the TNT area. So
that doesn't sound very safe.
Does not. So I'm going to tell you about the TNT area. During World War II, explosives were manufactured in Point Pleasant.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can imagine it's called the TNT area. Yes.
So this is like 7 miles outside of town. There had been a 2,500-acre wildlife preserve and bird sanctuary that they just kind of ripped out of there and turned into a munitions plant. They just kind of
blew up the animals. And
they didn't explode anything there, from what I can tell, like not on purpose anyway. But they like destroyed all of this to build this munitions plant area thing. According to the Mothman prophecies, miles of underground tunnels were dug that linked the buildings and factories that were built. There were about 100 igloo-shaped concrete domes with steel doors that are still out there where explosives had been kept after manufacturing. Then, I guess they were like, we'll just throw some dirt and grass on top of these domes, and then you'll just think that they're like hills, and you won't know that there's explosives here. So, in true form, teenagers hang out here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what these 2 teenage couples were doing that night. They were looking for their friends. As they were leaving the area, they saw 2 bright red circles about 2 inches in diameter and about 6 inches apart, which I thought was really good detail for scared 18-year-olds just cruising around in the middle of the night. I lost my spot. Oh, it kind of started shuffling away, which something that I noticed from everything that I read is Mothman doesn't walk too well.
Okay.
He flies great.
Yeah.
But he doesn't walk very well. So he was kind of shuffling towards the munitions plant. And I lost it again. They saw that the red circles were part of some kind of large animal. They claimed that it was shaped like a man and was 6 to 7 feet tall and had big wings folded against its back. It was grayish in color. Again, they described it shuffling towards the generator plant, and they took off on, like, the exit road that would lead them back to, like, Route 62 that would take them back to town.
Okay.
The creature, or one that was just like it, was standing on a hill near the road, and as they drove past it, the creature unfurled its wings, which they described as bat-like, and shot vertically into the air, like, yep, which I'm, like, picturing Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And it started, like, chasing them down the road. Roger claims that it was keeping up with them, doing 100 miles per hour. I'm like, this is a 1957 Chevy. Does it have the ability to go 100 miles per hour? And it didn't even seem to be flapping its wings. So again, I'm picturing Iron Man.
Well, that's what I was already thinking when you said it took off vertically. Like, what's the point of the wings then?
No, I don't know. Because he's not flapping his wings. He's just, like, gliding.
Yeah.
So Mary said that it was squeaking like a mouse.
That's intimidating.
Right? They got into the city limits and the creature disappeared. Another interesting fact is that when they were hightailing it back to town, they said that they noticed a large dead dog by the side of the road. And I couldn't really find anything about why they turned back around, because like it says in the book, like when they went back a few minutes later, the dog's body wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But I did even hear on another podcast that they had gone back, but I couldn't find any, like, written resources talking about it. But when they went back, the dog was gone. The sheriff, who also goes out to investigate that night, also did not find the dog, and so the question is it's bandits.
Okay.
But it was 100 miles away just an hour later. But if this thing can fly 100 miles an hour, then I guess it could have been. So these 4 teenagers head straight to the sheriff's office, and they tell their story to Deputy Millard Halstead, who said he took them seriously because he had known them their whole lives. They weren't really troublemakers, and they seemed legitimately scared. So, like I said, he didn't see the dog, but when he got out to the generator plant, his police radio started making a loud noise that sounded like a tape recorder being played at high speed. He was pretty spooked, and he didn't really want to check out the dark, creepy building by himself, so he went back to town. The next day, Sheriff George Johnson called a press conference, and the headline in the newspaper was, "Couple see man-sized bird, ... creature, ... something."
Something, ...
Yeah, I had an exclamation mark at the end. But I especially liked the ellipses. Like, we don't know what it is. But
the cat is smacking me with her angry tail.
Well, that's because she's an angry cat. Chunk is the angriest cat in the whole world. Alright, so now people are, like, flocking out to the TNT area, hoping to look, or, like, hanging out, like, trying to find Mothman, or anything
to get swept off their
strange.
feet by a large birdman.
Right? So, one car that goes out to the TNT area is carrying Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Wamsley and Marcella Bennett and her baby. They were driving through the area not looking for Mothman, but to visit friends who lived back behind these, like, big igloo dome things. Mm-hmm. When they got there, they realized that their friends weren't home, just a couple of their friends' children. So they talked to the kids for a minute, and then they were going back to their car to leave when a dark figure rose up from behind their parked car. So Mothman or not, this would have freaked me right out. Marcella said that it was like it had been laying on the ground. It was gray and bigger than a man, but shaped like a man, and had glowing red eyes, but also did not have a head. So I'm wondering if, like, the eyes were in a chest like the gravediggers had described.
I don't know.
Because it was described as, like, a headless being. Yeah. She was so scared she dropped her baby. Yeah.
Okay. Poor baby.
I know. The creature unfurled its wings. So Raymond grabs the baby and Marcella, and they all run into the house and lock the doors.
One under each arm.
Yes.
Wife under one arm, baby under the other.
They heard a noise on the porch, and they see the creature looking in through the window at them. And so they called the police, but by the time the police arrived, the creature was gone. And after the initial news reports, many sightings started coming in. So on November 17th at 4:45 a.m., Mrs. Roy Gross, Grose, I'm assuming it's gross.
Gross or grows.
Yeah, gross maybe. Was woken up by her dog barking. She said it was unusual, so she looked out the window and she saw an enormous object hovering around the tops of the trees in a field across from her house. This does not seem to be Mothman, but a UFO, because she describes it as circular and had green and red lights, and there were many reports of UFO activity prior to and during the time of the Mothman sightings.
Well, what does that have to do with the Mothman?
So, she said that it made a zigzag motion and disappeared. Well, Mothman might be an alien. So, I don't know.
Okay.
So anyway, the same afternoon, a 17-year-old boy was driving down the road near Mrs. Grose's house when a huge bird dove at his car and then chased him down the road for about a mile. November 18th, 2 firefighters in Point Pleasant named Paul Yoder and Benjamin Enoch were in the TNT area when they saw a giant bird with red eyes. They said it was definitely a bird, but that it was huge and nothing like any bird they had ever seen. They're like, but for sure it was a bird.
Totally a bird.
It was not this bird guy. Because lots of people were just calling it the bird.
Mm-hmm.
November 20th, 5 teenagers driving near Campbell's Creek saw a man-sized bird-like creature standing beside the rock quarry, and it turned and ran into the woods.
Why do they call him Mothman when everyone describes him as being a bird?
Oh, dude, I've got like 2 more points, and then I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So another man said that his dog was barking, and when he went out to see what was going on, a 6 to 7 foot gray creature with red eyes was in his yard and then flew off. Straight up. And then, so anyway, these were some of the sightings. There were lots more. So if you want to go see them, but I'm not going to read all of them. The consensus seems to be that it is brown, gray, or black with wings. That it is man-shaped and 6 to 7 feet high with a 10-foot wingspan and has the ability to shoot straight up vertically into the air. And it was mostly described as a bird or a bird-like creature. And so now you want to know how he got his name.
Because it bonks into light bulbs over and over and over.
Yes. Because, like, if everyone was going with bird, why Mothman,
Exactly.
Right? Well, apparently at the time, in the Batman comics, one of his nemesis names was Mothman. That's it.
Except they describe him as a bird.
That some unknown copywriter in some newspaper somewhere started calling him Mothman because of the Batman comics, and that is the only reason why.
I like to picture him being attracted to lights.
Just boinging off of the, like, people's porch lights.
Getting distracted.
Or, like, you're watching your iPad in the middle of the night.
He keeps getting on it.
Yeah. Though she's very excited about the idea of moths.
She's like, give me these bugs that you're talking about. Where are all the moths at?
Yeah. Okay. So, that's kind of backstory-y. I mean, that's, like, the major part of the Mothman sightings. It only lasted for, like, 13 months. So then on December 15th, 1967, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge over the Ohio River collapsed during rush hour and 46 people died. However, just days before this collapse, several Mothman sightings had been reported nearby, which leads to this idea that Mothman is actually a harbinger of doom. And it's rumored that sightings stopped after the bridge collapsed.
Okay.
But the Silver Bridge collapse wasn't the only time Mothman has shown up just before disaster struck. It has been said that there were sightings of a Mothman-like creature flying around and scaring people away from Chernobyl.
Okay.
Before the nuclear reactor exploded or whatever it did. He was seen in Japan right before the 2011 tsunami. He was also spotted in Chihuahua, Mexico in 2009, right before the swine flu outbreak occurred. He was spotted in Moscow right before the 1999 Russian apartment bombings. There have even been rumors that he was seen in New York City right before September 11th attacks. However, I've seen more posts and even more merch that were like, Mothman knew about 9/11 and did nothing. So, I don't know how accurate that one is.
Yeah.
So, is Mothman a harbinger of doom? Does he cause the bad things to happen, or is he actually trying to scare people away from the areas and warn people before disaster strikes?
So he's Mothman.
Yeah, he is not just Mothman. He's not like Phil Spider-Man.
No.
Okay, so another weird turn to this story are the sightings of the men in black. So when I heard this, I was expecting Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith.
You started going, here come the men in black.
Absolutely was, but that wasn't the case.
Dang it.
So in the Point Pleasant newspaper office, a woman named Mary Heyer, who maybe ran the newspaper by herself because she was the only name I saw ever associated with this newspaper, she was exhausted because the Silver Bridge had just collapsed, and she had been talking to, like, people who were survivors or people who were related to people who had died or were missing, and rescue workers and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And these two men walk in, and she said they were both short and wore black overcoats and were dark complected, and that they said something to her like, "We've heard there's been a lot of flying saucer activity around here." And she was surprised because all anyone had been talking about for days was the bridge collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So she handed them a folder that had clippings of UFO sightings, and they kind of like opened it and then like basically like browsed it and then shut it, handed it back to her, and asked her if anyone had told her not to publish those reports. And she said no. And they asked her, well, what if someone told you not to publish them? And she said, I'd tell them to go to hell.
Yeah.
And then they left.
It's her job to bring you the news.
That's right. So later that day, another weird dude walked in. So she said this guy was about 5'7" with black eyes and black hair, and that his complexion was darker than the other two. She said that he kind of looked like maybe he was Korean, and that he had unusually long fingers. He was wearing a black suit, but not a coat, even though it was really cold outside. He said that his name was Jack Brown and that he was a UFO researcher, and he had like a weird like pattern of speech, like maybe he had a speech impediment or something. And he also asked her what she would do if someone told her not to publish the reports of the UFO sightings. And so she was like, are you with like those other two dudes that walked in here earlier?
Mm-hmm.
And he said no, that he was alone, and that he was friends with some famous UFO investigator that I didn't write down his name. And then he asked her to take him to where the UFO sightings had occurred, and she was just like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I am going home. I am not doing that.
Right.
And I couldn't find the exact mention of it, but I had heard on another podcast that I think he left, or maybe it was like the next day on the street or something, she saw him and like he realized that she recognized him, and that he jumped into like a black sedan and it drove off. And so like he was acting kind of weird. But all of this seemed weird.
Right. That's kind of, I don't know, ominous.
So other men in black were seen around town interviewing people who had seen UFOs or Mothman and telling them not to report it. Linda Scarberry, who was one of the two couples that saw Mothman that night at the TNT plant, she reported that while they looked like men, their skin was oddly transparent and they really didn't act human. Like they didn't know how to act human.
Uh-huh.
And so it kind of reminded me of the Black Eyed Kids, where they would like put ketchup on their apples and stuff. Like they didn't know exactly like...
Or they didn't quite know how to word things.
Or like ask for like your telegraph machine or whatever. Like
that's what I'm saying. They didn't quite know how to word stuff.
Uh-huh. And so maybe they were some other kind of being. And then just briefly back to UFO sightings. One thing, because I didn't realize that the Mothman story tied so closely into UFO sightings, but I read The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel in the last couple of days, and he like really like one of the main themes of the entire book is the UFO sightings that were happening around the area and the activity, and like weird people showing up and acting strange and you know all of this stuff. And so if Mothman isn't an alien, and he could be an alien because of all of this. Maybe all of the weird activity happening around the time, like, created him, or he was just drawn to it, or, you know, whatever. And if the men in black were actually men and not also aliens, as they seem to be depicted, was Mothman some kind of government cover-up?
Okay.
And were all of the sightings genuine, or was this mass hysteria?
I picture the Men in Black being kind of like the Jadoon on Doctor Who, and they're like space police, and Mothman is like escaped or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he's like, what is it, Patient Zero?
Prisoner Zero.
Prisoner Zero, yeah. Yeah, could be. So, theories. Many skeptics, biologists, etc. believe that this was just a bird misidentification.
Yeah, because some people say they're like big owls.
Yeah, so, I mean, my best guess is giant goth pigeon. But in reality, there was a wildlife biologist at the time who really thought that it was a sandhill crane that somehow got off course and ended up in the area.
But they're very skinny.
Well, sandhill cranes, as we know from seeing them every year, they're about 4.5 feet tall. They have a wingspan of 6.5 feet.
But they're very skinny.
But they also have red on top of their heads, and so I don't know. But they're very skinny, and they have really long necks.
I could picture an owl being like beefier.
Right. So another thought was that it was a barred owl. But I guess barred owls aren't really in this area either. But I mean, if it could be a rogue sandhill crane, why couldn't it be a rogue barred owl?
Yeah.
And I guess their eyes maybe glow red in the light. It could have just been that the two original couples saw a bird and freaked out, and then after it was published in the paper, mass hysteria could account for all of the other sightings.
Exactly.
Maybe he's just a real Mothman.
Yeah.
And if the Men in Black were real, maybe he was some weird government project gone wrong. My personal idea is that, remember how the area used to be a wildlife preserve, bird sanctuary? Maybe he's like the spirit of animals that were like ripped out of their habitat. Or maybe the munitions plant created some weird mutant bird creature guy. I don't know. I don't know what he is. But
I've never met him.
I have not met him. But that's mostly it's that he's just some bird that somebody saw and freaked out, and then everybody else was like, I also saw the giant scary bird.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't know these people, and I don't know where they're singing from.
That's right. So whatever Mothman was or is, maybe an ominous omen or a cosmic bird or a misunderstood goth icon, he definitely has left like a mark on conspiracy lore.
Yes.
In pop culture, he's been depicted in the movie The Mothman Prophecies, which was loosely based on the book by John Keel. It came out in 2002 and starred Richard Gere. I saw it.
I think I've seen it once, and it's been a million years
ago. Yeah, so, and I was going to watch it, but it wasn't streaming on anything we pay for, so I didn't watch it again. There are countless TV shows and documentaries that either hunt or have storylines featuring Mothman. He was on The X-Files, Unsolved Mysteries, I think like Destination America or something.
Yeah.
Hunted for him. There's zillions of them. There's like a whole list. Point Pleasant, West Virginia fully embraces the legend of Mothman now. They have a statue that was unveiled in 2003 that has some killer metal abs. Yeah. I mean, this rivals Roswell's Duncan alien with his big pecs.
With his six-pack.
He doesn't actually, the other day I looked, he has no abs. He just has giant pecs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he's giving six-pack.
Because I was like, I wonder if his abs are as big as Mothman's statue. And then I was like, he doesn't even have abs at all. It's all flat, but he has giant pecs.
A giant pec, so it gives bodybuilder.
Yes. There is a museum that is open year-round and a Mothman festival every September, which draws thousands of people to the town. Mothman is now everything from an ominous prophet to a queer icon. You can buy pride flags and all kinds of pride merch depicting Mothman. I saw one bumper sticker that said, I met Mothman and he's gay.
Yeah?
Yeah. The internet loves a misunderstood monster.
Yes.
So anyway, that is sort of the story of Mothman.
All right.
Not the whole story, I'm sure. There's 1,000 other things and crazy theories, and like you could go way far into the UFO sightings and things, but yeah.
I had something I was going to say that I was saving to the end, and now I have no idea what it was.
You did that last week too.
I know.
You should write it down.
I didn't bring a righty thing with me today.
My phone was right there. You could have typed it into notes,
I guess. I usually have my iPad with me, and I could scribble it down in Procreate, but
you
not
didn't.
Today.
You didn't draw us any pictures today.
If I drew us pictures, I wouldn't have listened to anything that you said.
Draw us a picture of Mothman.
I think I drew Mothman one time, a long time ago.
Draw him again. I'm going to have to post things on social media. You might as well draw us a Mothman.
Right. I need to get a new big button maker so I can make us some buttons.
Some Mothman buttons?
No, some Twisted and Mysterious buttons.
All right.
But
Twisted and Mysterious Mothman buttons?
No. The lizard also has nothing to share.
No, she's wondering when we're actually going to feed her the moth that we've been talking about.
So you guys have been talking about a moth for almost an hour now, and I haven't had a single bug. I haven't seen a single moth. You didn't give me any worms.
She's disappointed in us.
Yeah. She's supposed to be asleep. I don't know why she's awake.
I don't know either.
She's never awake this long.
Nope.
But, yeah, I had something I was going to say, but completely slipped my mind.
You can tell us later.
I guess.
If you remember.
If I remember. Hopefully, I'll be able to find some information on either the topic that I've been wanting to do or some other topic by next week.
I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see. I hate research.
Isn't it so much fun?
No. I didn't like it when I had to do it for school, and I don't love it for the podcast either.
No.
So I'm just the hype man.
Well, everybody needs one.
I guess so. I need to go take my Ozempic before bed, because I forgot to take it yesterday.
Alright.
Why are you examining your straw?
I don't know, it felt flat, but it's not flat.
You know that you have 10 shots in your mouth a day, right?
I know. Well, that's why I was looking at it, because I was like, it feels flat. Is it flat? But it really does when I put it in my mouth. It feels like, you know how your straw feels whenever you bit it, and it's like, smushed.
Yeah.
It's not. It's weird.
Your mouth is just smushed.
Ugh, my mouth is smushed. Okay, anyway. Well,
tell them where they can find us.
You can find us on social media at Twisted and Mysterious. You can email us at
twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
That's it. That's the one. I don't remember our Twitter one. Twist Miss Pod. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think so. And is that all of the things?
We usually blather on about how they can email us if they have any story ideas or any stories of their own.
Oh, that's right. Blather away. And you can go on Apple Podcasts and you can rate and review. And
it really helps us out if you rate and review the podcast after listening to it.
One, it tells us what you like or what you don't like. And also, it helps other people find us.
Because we're still looking for South America.
Yeah, we are. I'm pretty sure the penguins are going to start listening to us before South Americans are.
We're going to have an Antarctica before we have a South America.
Yeah. There are literally 2 dots that are just out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
But no South America.
Yeah.
Maybe we're banned in South America.
Probably.
I think that's what it is. It's the only reasonable explanation.
It could be the only reason why someone in South America is not listening to our podcast.
One single person. That's it. It's the only reason.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, then, as always, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
Yeah, and if you see, like, red glowing eyeballs, maybe go the other direction because, like, a bridge is gonna collapse or something. Alright.
Bye.